Dear students, welcome back to today's class. Now, in the last class, I'm sure you have learned about correlation and regression. Now, in this class, we are going to learn about t-test. Again, t-test. Don't worry, I'm going to explain this concept to you thoroughly. But before I go into that concept, I want to show you this updated questionnaire. This is the same questionnaire we used when I explained to you how to use SPSS. Now the only difference here is I have added one more question in this questionnaire. Earlier we had a question about weight. So I have changed that question a little bit. So what is your weight before starting exercise? And along with that, I have added another question, which is the last one. What is your weight after 3-month exercise? So we are assuming that in our survey, all the respondents went through a 3-month exercise program. Why? Maybe to lose weight or become healthy. So yes, in the updated questionnaire, we have a question asking about the weight of the respondents before the exercise program. And also we have another question which asks them about their weight after the 3-month exercise program is over. So that is the change in the questionnaire. Now along with that, I have another change in the responses collected. Earlier, we had 10 respondents. So we had starting from JSH up to Rukaya. Now for our better understanding in this class, I have added further 5 respondents. Raisa, Sabrin, Zihad, Shafin and Wahidul. So for this class, we have 15 respondents in total. So these are the only 2 changes. Now that we know the changes that I have made, let's move on to today's discussion topic. So today we are going to discuss t-test. Now just to tell you, there are 3 different kinds of t-test. One sample t-test, paired sample t-test, and finally independent samples t-test. Now I'm going to explain each of these tests one by one in this class. Don't worry about it. So let's first start with the one sample t-test. Why do we use it? What is the purpose of using it? Here it is. The one sample t-test determines whether a sample mean is statistically different from a known or given or hypothesized population mean. I know it is really difficult to understand, but let me put it this way. The main reason we use t-test is to find out whether 2 means or 2 average figures are different. Again, we want to find out whether 2 means or 2 average figures are different from each other. Now in one sample t-test, what we do is basically we try to find out whether my sample mean is statistically different from a known or a given another mean. Let's take a look at the question below. In that manner, it will be very easy for you to understand. So the first question is the mean weight of my sample significantly different from 60 kg? So what are we asking here? Whether the mean weight of my sample or my 15 respondents that I have collected data from, whether their mean weight is different from 60 kg. That is what we are trying to find out here. Now let's match this question with this definition. In this question, we are trying to find out whether the mean weight of the 15 respondents in my sample is different from 60 kg. Now let's take a look at the definition. The definition says we are trying to find out whether a sample mean is statistically different from a known population mean or any given average or mean figure. So this is exactly what is happening here in the question as well. I am trying to find out whether there is any statistically significant difference between the mean of my sample and the given mean of 60 kg. So whenever a question like this appears, we have to use one sample t-test. So now that we know our question, let's go back to SPSS and try to find out the answer. So the question is, we are trying to find out whether the mean weight of my sample is different from 60 kg. So let's go back to the SPSS file. So here is the data view, and on the other hand, we have the variable view. Now let's go back to the data view. So in order to run one sample t-test, we have to go to analyze here. So after we go to analyze, we have to select compare means, and then we have to select one sample t-test. See, it's that easy. Again, first go to analyze, then compare means, and then one sample t-test. Then select this option. Now, the rest of the task is really easy. Just as before, on the left hand side, we have all the variables listed or all the questions. And on the right hand side, we have to bring the variables that we want to analyze. Now in this question, what is the variable that we are going to work with? Yes, It is the weight variable. So from here, we have to find out the weight variable. Now to work easily, what I'm going to do first is click the right mouse button and then select display variable names. So it's easier to see the name of the variables. Now I'm going to search for the weight variable. So if I go down, we have weight before and weight after. Now let's assume that the question is asking for the mean weight before. Again, let's assume that the question is asking us to compare the mean weight before the exercise program. Now, if the question asked us to compare weight after, in that case, the process would have been exactly the same. So do not worry about it. So for the time being, let's assume that the question asked us to compare the means of weight before the exercise program. So in that case, let's select weight before and then click this button. So the weight before variable is taken to the right hand side. Now we have one last piece of task left. We have to fill out this cell, test value. Now if we go back to the questionnaire, remember the question asked us, is the mean weight of my sample significantly different from 60 kg? So this is the value that they are asking me to compare my sample mean with. So in the test value, I have to write this figure, 60. So let's go back and then type 60 here. Why did we do that? Because I want to compare the weight of my sample with this figure, 60. It's as simple as that. Again, compare the mean or average of the weight before the exercise program in my sample with 60, which was given in the question. So now let's select OK. And as soon as we select OK, we will get the result. So let's do that. Yes, here is the result. T-test. Now let's take a look at the result. In the first table, the only thing that we need to look at for now is this value. This is the mean weight of my sample, 66. So as you can see here, what is your weight before starting exercise? So for my sample, the average weight before starting the exercise program was 66. Now this is the value or the average figure of my sample. We are not done yet. Now we have to take a look at the statistical significance. And I'm sure you have definitely heard of p-value in the correlation and regression class, right? Now from the last two classes on correlation and regression, by now you definitely know that for a test to be statistically significant or a result to be statistically significant, the p-value has to be less than 5%. Again, the p-value has to be less than 5% or 0.05. Now where do we find this p-value for this test? Here it is. So this is the p-value here. Now is it less than 5% or 0.05? Yes. This is less than 5% because it's showing it is 0.03, which means 3%. So as the p-value is less than 5%, that means the result in this test is statistically significant. Again, as the p-value for this test is less than 5%, so the result here is statistically significant. Now on the right hand side of this cell, it is showing that the mean difference between my sample's weight and the given average in the question, which was 60, the difference between these two values is 6. Obviously, right? Because our mean is 66 and the test value was 60. So the mean difference is 6. And this difference is statistically significant. Why? Again, because the p-value here is less than 5%. That is it. We are done. So in one sample t-test, we have to take a look at two values. Number one, we have to take a look at the mean of my sample, which is 66 in this case. And from there, we can definitely say the mean difference is 6. And then the second important value is this one. From this, we can say that whether the difference that we found out, whether it is statistically significant or it is not statistically significant. Now, from this result, as the p-value is less than 5%, we can definitely say that the mean difference in this test is statistically significant. So let's go back to the Word file. Now, the question was, is the mean weight of my sample significantly different from 60 kg? The answer should be yes. Yes, the mean weight of my sample is significantly different from 60 kg. So we are done with the first question. Now, regarding this issue, you have heard of null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis, right? Every test has a null and alternate hypothesis. And I'm sure Fazleh sir has explained this concept very well. What is a null hypothesis and what is an alternate hypothesis? So for this test, one sample t-test, what will be the null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis? Here it is. The null hypothesis will be there is no statistically significant difference between the two means. Again, there is no statistically significant difference between the two means. That means both of the means are equal or same. On the other hand, the alternate hypothesis will be there is a statistically significant difference between the two means. Again, there is a statistically significant difference between the two means. So this is how we write two hypotheses for one sample t-test. Now again, I'm sure Fazlul sir has mentioned it earlier, but just to tell it again, in null hypothesis we always assume that there is no difference, and in the alternate hypothesis we assume that there is a statistically significant difference. Now, these are the two hypotheses in general. Now for question number 1, we have already the result with us, right? So we found out there is a statistically significant difference between our sample mean and the given mean of 60 kg. Now for question number 1, do we accept the null hypothesis or the alternate hypothesis? Can you guess? Yes, definitely. For question number 1, we reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternate one. Again, for question number 1, we reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternate one. Why? Because the alternate one said that there is a statistically significant difference. And from our analysis, we also found out that yes, there is a statistically significant difference. So that is why we are rejecting the null hypothesis and accepting the alternate one for question number 1. So that's it. Now I guess the concept is clear to you. Now just for practice purpose, we are going to solve another one regarding the same topic. I would request you to try to solve it on your own first and then take a look at this video. Or maybe let's try to solve it together at the same time. So the second question asks, is the mean height of my sample significantly different from the average national height of America, which is 200 centimeters? So again, in this question, as you can see, it is very similar to the earlier one. So here, the question is asking whether the average height of my sample or the mean height of my sample is statistically significantly different from a given figure, which is 200 centimeters. So again, in order to solve this question, we have to use one sample t-test. So let's try to memorize the question and then go back to SPSS. So again, mean height of my sample and the given value is 200 centimeters. So let's go back to SPSS and then select analyze and then go to compare means and then one sample t-test. Now, we are not going to use this one, wait before. So we have to select it and send it back. Now for this question, we are going to net this variable, height. So let's select that and then send it to the right hand side. So we are going to work on the height variable here. That's why we have sent it to the right hand side. Now in the test value, what is the given height in the question? Yes, 200 centimeters. So we have to delete 60 and then type 200. Now, before we select OK, what have we done here? We are going to compare the average height in my sample with this given average height of America, which is 200 centimeters. So we are ready. Let's select OK. So yes, the result is here. Now, as I just said before, we have to consider two values here. Number 1, the mean height of my sample, and then number 2, the p-value. Now, as you can see here from the first table, the mean height of my sample is 156.0667. Is it different? Yes. If we go to the second table, it shows here that the mean difference is minus 43.933. So the test value was 200 and my sample mean is 156.06, which is 43.93 less than the given test value of 200. So the mean difference is minus 43.93. That means the mean height in my sample is smaller. So we are done with one value. What is the next value that we need? P-value. Why? Because we need to measure whether this difference is statistically significant or not. Now the thumb rule is again whether p-value is less than 5%. As you can see, it is very well below 5%. It's 0.000 here. So that means our p-value is less than 5% and we can safely say that yes, the difference given here is statistically significant. So the result that we got is statistically significant. So now let's go back to the questionnaire again. So the question was, is the mean height of my sample statistically significantly different from the average national height of America, which is 200 centimeters? The answer would be yes. It is statistically significantly different. Why? Because the p-value is less than 5%. Now let's take a look at the hypothesis for this question. Again, the same rule applies. The null hypothesis is this one, so no statistically significant difference, and the alternate hypothesis is this one. So there is a statistically significant difference. Now from the result that we got, do we accept the null hypothesis or the alternate hypothesis? Yes, you are correct. We have to reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternate one. Again, we have to reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternate one. Why? Because our result said that yes, there is a statistically significant difference between the two given means. So that's why we accept the alternate hypothesis. So yes, we are done with one sample t-test. So in the next video, we are going to move on to the next type of t-test, which is paired sample t-test. See you very soon.